Well, hello, everyone. It's the second live on Government Channel meeting with the Affordable Housing Commission. We're very excited for anybody who's watching us on the Government Channel. We do seem to have a good quorum here, actually.
We do.
I'm Sylvie Spelness, and this is the Affordable Housing Commission meeting. And I'd like to start out the meeting with explaining what the Affordable Housing Commission is. So, the Athens City Affordable Housing Commission is a commission of city government established to review best practices, investigate community affordable housing models, and identify needs and opportunities within Athens city limits to advance decent, safe, sustainable, affordable housing for all city residents. The commission is tasked with providing advice and guidance on measures and policies that influence access to and needs within the local housing market. So just to be clear, this is not just for low-income housing. We also look at housing for all levels and people around the community so that we have enough of a workforce for all of our industry and university, city buildings, et cetera. So here we are. Thank you very much for being here. And today, before I get started much further, I want to say, yes, we do have quorum. It looks like everybody's here, which is wonderful. Thank you so much for coming. And then the next thing we need to do is the disposition of minutes. So can we have a motion to approve the minutes from July?
So move.
I'll second.
Thank you. All right. Any discussion? Changes, concerns? Seeing no hands, let's just say if you are approve them, then please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay, I think we've gotten this far. Great. The next thing is we have Glenn Crippen, who is the HAPCAP Affordable Housing Director, and complementing him in information is Zach Dye, one of our members, who's the Executive Director of the Metropolitan Housing Authority. Thank you very much. So we asked them to talk about programs that can help people with housing needs, repairs, and renovations, if they qualify, if they are eligible. And this is very important because a number of people have come to me as city council member and asked, gee, I'd really like to fix up my house, but I don't have the money, or it really is a stretch for me to do that. How can I get some help? So we have the experts here. We really appreciate you being here, and if you could take it away from there, we'll appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you, everyone. My name is Glenn Crippen. I'm the Director of Housing and Community Development at Hawking Athens Perry Community Action. Our main office is up in Gloucester, but we serve the city and the county with all sorts of housing programs. I've been with HAPCAP for 19 years, and we offer a lot of different programs and services where we provide administrative capacity for local jurisdictions and governments, and we also are the applicant and grantee for many of our own grants. Several of the programs we administer, we do work on behalf of the City of Athens as it pertains to a partnership the city has with Athens County and the City of Nelsonville for a large grant-funded program called Community Housing Impact and Preservation, or the CHIP program. CHIP is funded by HUD and the Ohio Housing Trust Fund, and it is administered by the Ohio Department of Development. Those grants are given to, they're competitive, they're very competitive, and they are provided on a 2-year cycle. And they are, the purpose of the CHIP program is to preserve the aging housing stock and to perform repairs and rehabilitation to homes that are in need. And what makes a household eligible for the CHIP program is if their household income is at or below 80% of the area median income, which is also commonly described or referred to as LMI, an acronym for low to moderate income. I believe a household of one can earn around $48,000 annual and still be eligible for the CHIP program. So HABCAP serves on the county's behalf, and we create a partnership with the city of Nelsonville and the city of Athens, which was a preference of the funder. Years ago, the city would apply for CHIP on its own to the state, but we regionalized and we submit less grants and get larger funding and serve more. So there's a little bit of history there, but now we serve the city's residents through the CHIP program, but it's a county grant. And the county has, fiscal and legal jurisdiction over it. However, we do still serve a lot of residents in the city of Athens. Eligible activities, a little more specifics about some of the eligible activities under the CHIP program are home repair. Home repairs are smaller projects, and when I say small, I mean in the vicinity of $15,000 to $20,000. It can address anything in the home from the foundation to the roof, and it can also address mechanical systems in the home, such as HVAC and so forth. Home repairs projects, if you are selected for home repair, and we have a long waiting list for CHIP, unfortunately. So even though we do receive large grants and stay very busy, we're barely scratching the surface. But if you are selected and found eligible for a CHIP activity, we will inspect the home and evaluate whether or not it can be brought up to the residential rehab standards, or the RRS, which is a set of rules and codes of standards of rehabilitation set forth by the state of Ohio. And of course, any local codes that are and rules that are in effect. So we can repair a home, and that assistance is given to the household in the form of a grant. There's no strings attached. For owners, as I mentioned, there's an eligibility threshold of the income. If renters are interested in CHIP, they're eligible income-wise. The landlord has to be, to receive assistance, the landlord has to be LMI as well, because they're sort of a beneficiary. If they're not LMI, they are responsible for providing 50% of the repair. That's a challenging, the rental aspect of home repair is challenging because very few landlords are interested in having half of the repair budget coming out of their finances and not having much say in the project. They might have preferences on what gets addressed and what doesn't, whereas we are repairing the home to the standards of the residential rehab standards. So we evaluate what needs done and what we think can get done for how much compared, and we're comparing it to the RRS to see if we can get it done. The next threshold of activity eligible under the CHIP program is home rehabilitation. These are much larger, more encompassing projects that can go, upwards of $60,000 to $70,000, and they can also address mechanical systems in the home and anything from the foundation to the roof. And there is a stipulation with these larger projects, the home rehabs, in that if the county is going to make an investment with the CHIP grant in that large into a private residence, there's a 5-year lien placed against the deed, and should they transfer or wish to sell within that 5-year period, there's an amount that's due back to that jurisdiction, and in that case it's whatever jurisdiction they live in. And this is considered program income, and not to get it too far into the weeds on that, but if the CHIP program helps a jurisdiction earn income from a payback, it is strictly managed in a revolving loan fund, or RLF, a housing RLF, which is also required to be spent out during the grant period. So while folks are being invested in, and then if they move out or sell, some of those proceeds go back to the jurisdiction, and then that amount is in turn reinvested back into the CHIP program. So that's one large bit of work we do, the CHIP program, and thankfully the City of Athens agrees to a partnership with the county and the City of Nelsonville. It allows us to ask for more dollars, and they do suggest they set aside an amount that's set aside for these jurisdictions. However, we can serve more or less in any jurisdiction based on need and level of need and what's doable. So in other words, if we were unable to find, which never happens, if we were unable to find people to utilize this service out in the county, we could do more in the city and vice versa. So it's as long as we get the work done in the county, but we do, we operate with the budget that the city has. I think it's $350,000 per chip, and the county has $400,000, and those can be mingled between the jurisdictions. So it's a good bit of funding. It has an awesome impact on households. I've seen it change people's lives. I mean, it can save a house from, when they get to a certain point where it's not cost feasible to bring them back, CHIP can be a good program for that. So that is an example of a program where we provide capacity for local governments. However, we write some of our own grants where we are the applicant, where our agency is the grantee. And one of those is called the Housing Assistance Grant Program, or HAG-P. This is an emergency home repair grant that we get awarded about every 2 years in the amount of $300,000. And these are for emergency home repairs for elderly, seniors. And there's also a waiting list for that. And, our housing office in Nelsonville on St. Charles Street acts as a hub for a lot of inquiries from the whole county, really 3 counties. But if we're speaking about Athens City and Athens County, we are an information and referral hub for a lot of housing concerns, whether it be repairs or rehabs, or what I was segueing into was our weatherization program that we partner with COAD on. COAD writes a weatherization grant to ODOD. This is another federally funded program through the Department of Energy, enabled by legislation from 1976, the weatherization program. And that program is strictly for energy conservation measures to the home. Sealing, air leakage, finding where there's inefficiencies in the home, and finding out how we can improve, and blowing insulation into the walls and into the attics, and also performing work under the home if it's on a foundation without a basement. So weatherization is a very unique program. It receives a lot of bipartisan support at the federal level. It's hard to argue against it, really, because it's badly needed in all 50 states. Even Hawaii even has its own weatherization program. It can work for hot weather too, to keep your house cool, and it's to save energy. It's to make, and it also addresses health and safety issues in the home, such as a furnace. If there's a leak, a carbon monoxide problem, we can detect those and get those repaired as well. So weatherization is an energy conservation program. CHIP is a home repair and home rehab, and the Housing Assistance Grant is also a home repair grant. So when somebody calls into us, we find out where they may fit in. We have them fill out an application for all of our stuff, and we see where we can help. So that's a quick rundown of our programs. Now, eligibility for weatherization is a little bit different than CHIP. CHIP is HUD realm. It's in the realm of HUD. And they go on area median income to gauge income eligibility. The weatherization program, or the Department of Energy, uses the federal poverty level guidelines. So if a household is at 200% of the federal poverty guidelines, they are eligible for weatherization. Unfortunately, I have to say that one of the caveats with weatherization is there is also a very long waiting list. There are homes that have been on the waiting list for 3 years or more. And we weatherize approximately 70 to 80 homes a year, which is a lot because it involves a lot of work. And most of it is blowing insulation, air sealing, and so forth, and furnace work, new furnace installation at times. Now, we also work with private money too with this a bit, such as Columbia Gas funds weatherization through a program called Warm Choice. And AEP also funds some weatherization services through a program called EPP, or Electrical Partnership Program. So this housing network, we work through with COAD out on East State Street. They're a state grantee for weatherization. So we partner with them to do weatherization. We partner with the county to do CHIP, and some of these grants we write on our own, such as the Housing Assistance Grant. So our agency is a poverty fighting agency. We are fighting the war on poverty through many different levels. Housing is just one of them. And those are some of our programs that we offer. Our agency also has the distinct privilege of partnering with developers for larger developments in and around town. And they need a nonprofit partner to be in the deal. It gets very confusing, but it's called the Low Income Housing Tax Credit, LIHTC, or LIHTC is the acronym that we call it. And if anyone would like to learn more about that, I'd be happy to talk about it. But essentially, it's IRS Section 42 that permits that type of assistance. And that funding is, in that program, LIHTC, is what has allowed developments such as Kershaw Green out on State Route 682. We were a partner for two of those, and they partnered with somebody else on the other two. And we're considered a co-developer or a co-general developer, and we usually have 0.049 or 0.05%, 1%, less than 1% interest in those. But we are the local entity that helps coordinate that with local units of government and so forth. So, and we have about maybe, I think, 12 of those projects throughout the 3-county service region that we work in, that being Hocking and Perry County as well. Nelsonville Commons up on Fayette Street in Nelsonville, that was a LIHTC project. So that was a good one, preserving that old school up there. So that's just a quick rundown of our programs, and I'm happy to take questions or talk about these to whatever extent we would all entertain. And thank you.
Well, thank you, Glenn. I have like a million questions, and we don't have time for a million questions.
Sure.
Perhaps other people do too. But perhaps we could ask Zach to complement some of this and
Yes.
where he fits in with the Metropolitan Housing Authority.
I'm Zach, the director of the Athens Metropolitan Housing Authority. I've worked with HAPCAP and the CHIP program on the home repairs and home rehabilitation. If you guys are out and about in the community, you can check out 7 Euclid. They just finished up a front and a back ramp, handicap accessible ramp. 12 Graham Drive, they replaced the main sewer line. Those are in Athens and Nelsonville. They're currently replacing a furnace and a central air unit. And 2080 East First in the Plains, it was a pretty big project. They did new wiring, new plumbing, new gas lines, leveled up a sagging floor, and really it's been a blessing that you guys are doing this program. And really, I mean, those houses were definitely in need of some help, and you guys provided that for us.
I'm
And the
glad that
families are a
you
lot
all
happier.
coordinate that so that we can really attack the problem in a comprehensive way.
Absolutely. And because Zach is a housing provider to an LMI population in the first place, we are allowed to do CHIP projects, rental. That's usually where we collaborate with Metropolitan Housing. Otherwise, it is almost impossible to work with landlords and have them invest 50% when they're not calling the shots. I'll be frank about that. It's difficult, it's challenging, and I understand and respect that. But because he's a provider of housing to that population, CHIP rental activities. We collaborate with Metropolitan Housing. And in a large, we've been working on this for decades. We've been doing this for decades. I mean, we are in hundreds of homes a year. And, it is to preserve the aging housing stock. And it's like, we may not notice these differences, but it's huge. And it's good for our local economy. We have to maintain a qualified contractor base. And these are individuals that are properly insured and licensed and responsive and honest. And those are tough categories to fit into these days.
That alone is very important.
Yeah.
Well, in the interest of time,
Yes.
because we try to do this in an hour, I just have a couple of questions, and that is, how do people find out more about this?
Yeah.
And can we, because we would like, I think, anybody disagree with me on this? We'd like to provide on our website, with the city website, and any other place that seems reasonable, a spot where we can house some of this resource information.
Absolutely.
And, however we can make this available to other people.
Sure. We do market these programs through social media and our website. We run occasional press in the newspaper once or twice a year. And we also have a contractor marketing program where we are trying to attract contractors. We'll take out billboards. You might have seen billboards on 33 between here and Nelsonville, stating that we need contractors. That's the biggest bottleneck. Oh, there is one other program I forgot to mention, and I'll mention it quickly in the interest of time. Lead Safe Ohio, which is ARPA funded. We received $1.6 million to reduce lead hazard in homes. Yes, the maximum assistance available is of $50,000 per household unless we get a waiver from the state. But all of that work is being done by lead abated licensed contractors through the Ohio Department of Health. And they have made a huge investment in increasing the amount of contractors available by paying for their training for lead abatement. So any pre-1978 home that may have a lead risk, we can look at and evaluate the feasibility for that as well. We received a $1.6 million grant. We obligated it in less than 2 months, and we've asked for another $1.6 million. So we're busy.
Yeah, the other areas that I've been hearing about is, I know there's a paint program, and there's some confusion about who actually operates the paint program in Athens.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the paint program.
Maybe it's just an Athens thing. I've been trying to figure it out, but
We had a
apparently
paint
there's
program in Gloucester about 10 years ago, but I don't know.
Yeah, there, according to Kathy Hack, who ought to know, our auditor, we have and still have, just that nobody's been using it.
Okay.
So we need to find out. And somebody said, well, maybe Glenn knows.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to seek out what that is, because that can be a big help to a lot of people.
Yeah, I'd be curious to learn more about the paint program.
Another concern is mold, of course.
Mold.
Yeah. And I'm concerned about, there's been some complaints specifically in the last 24 hours about some mold issues at Kershaw Green.
Oh,
And, yeah, so my understanding is that perhaps because the buildings have to be built so tight, that there's small amounts of mold that people don't really know how to deal with. So that might be an
Sure.
educational thing where you have to run your fan all the time or something. I don't
Yeah.
know. But it might be helpful to, because, they're complaining, and I don't really know much about how to deal with that, so.
well, there's not a lot of law about mold. Mold's a tricky one, and I was unaware of that Kershaw Green problem. I'm curious to hear about that. But yeah, mold, we can address mold, but we have learned there's like a lack, and Zach, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's not really a lot of Ohio law or revised code about mitigating mold. We certainly can test for it, and people know when it's apparent and abundant or visible, and we remove it. But as far as like thresholds that are acceptable, I'm not really that knowledgeable about that.
Okay, I guess my thought was it might be helpful for people to be informed about how to make sure you don't get mold or what to do, and
Right.
so I'd like to work on something like that.
Sure.
For folks.
You know, I'll keep this short, but in the weatherization program, there is a specific bit of funding for, sometimes we do make a house too tight and there's not enough circulation. We have to put an extra fan in to
Right.
get it vented, to get enough fresh air in. So
Right.
it is a matter of moisture and fresh air. And those Kershaw greens were built, you know, they're pretty environmentally friendly. I'd have to learn more about that.
Well, anyway, any other questions?
Yes, I was wondering if you could tell us how many of the CHIP grants have been awarded in the city of Athens over the past, let's just say the past 2 years?
Well, we received, let me see every year that we apply, we get the grant, knock on wood. It's extremely competitive. The state awards 15 to 20 of these annually, statewide. In the last successful Athens County CHIP grant we wrote, well, we just submitted one in June, and we'll know whether or not it was funded around December. The one before that would have been, it was successfully applied for and granted, and that would have been program year 22. So in June of 22, we submitted and we were funded.
But how many homes through that grant have been funded within the city?
How many households in the city have
Yes.
been helped with CHIP in the last 2 years?
Yeah. Or
I don't have that exact number, unfortunately, but I would guess 7 to 10.
And then you mentioned $350,000 that comes to the city of Athens, am I correct?
It comes through the county,
Through
but
the
it's,
county, but
it's
that's
for work to be
allotted to
done
the
in the
city.
city. Yes.
And so would that remain the same in this year, or your grant, or is it, did you ask for an increase?
We asked, well, they tell us how much we can ask for. We go for the maximum per jurisdiction, and it's based on, the way they formulate that amount is based on population and census data of income. And the university population has benefited our LMI statistics in that area for a long time.
And total, about how many homes throughout the county on the CHIP program have been served? Would you estimate, or?
I estimate 25 or so every 2 years. That's just CHIP.
Right.
Yep, just
Right,
CHIP.
that's all I was asking. was
Yeah,
the CHIP.
approximately above 20.
And then just on the Athens Paint Program, that is, I believe, just a city program. When
Yeah.
Dale Tamke was a member of city council, he was the one who passed that ordinance.
Okay, well, we'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, does anybody have any other? So if somebody thinks they might be eligible or whatever, we send them to your website and they can sign up there.
Yep.
And you've got some flyers for us.
Absolutely. I have some flyers, be happy to hand out, and we could get a link on your website.
That would be great.
You know, we administer the city's fair housing program as well, which is a requirement of you receiving CDBG funds.
Right.
That's a non-housing thing. Well, fair housing is housing, but that fair housing requirement comes on the infrastructure grant, believe it or not. It's a HUD grant to your CDBG. They include a budget in the CDBG administrative piece for fair housing. So we administer via contract to the city fair housing information and referral, and we've got that on your website, linking that to us. We'd be happy to work with your IT staff to get a link to our programs and applications, et cetera.
That would be great. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Okay. Do you have any burning questions? Maybe you can stick around and we might ask you some questions afterwards.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, we try to make this an hour, so we're going to zoom forward with the next topic, unless you wanted to add something, Zach?
No, I handed out a brochure. I'll give you one as well.
Great.
And if people want to apply, that we also have a website, or they can stop in the office and pick up an application form for the
Thank you so
different
much, I
programs.
really appreciate it. Okay, then I'm going to turn it over to Megan Jennings, who is our city planner. Thank you very much. And she's going to give us an update of stuff that's going on in the city.
So for the first two items, to be honest, I'm not actively involved in those things. So honestly, Solveig, you probably know more about those two items, the Bridges Housing Project and then also the University Estates Woods Edge status. I don't have updates on those two items for the commission at this time, but Solveig, you may know more.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, all right, I will take it away based on what I know anyway. The Ridges recently had their status update, and they told us that they have one more step with the state, the controlling board, and if they pass and say it's okay, they can move forward, then they can start with the design and planning on a definite basis rather than a we'll see how it goes basis, which is very positive. So they're hoping that that happens before the end of the year. They're hoping that they can start design and building next year. So, I mean, obviously, it's not going to all happen, and we're talking about possibly 700 units, housing units. And again, that will be, the plan is there would be rentals, there would be homeowner condos and townhouses, and there would be, they would renovate the historic buildings at the Ridges and make them habitable. They also plan to put some stores and restaurants and all that kind of stuff there, so it would be a really cool place to live. There's plans for senior housing, and they're trying to make it as environmentally friendly as possible. They have a website that they're hoping should be any time now approved by the university so that there will be up-to-date very clear information about what's going on in timelines and all that kind of stuff. So that's what's happening with that as far as I know. I just checked with Joe Recchi the other day, and they had been finally approved to put up their website, but they're reluctant, the university's reluctant to have them do that until the property has actually been transferred to the entity, and I can't think of the name of it right now, sorry about that, that will be responsible for it. Okay, the other thing is, University of Woods Edge, last night, the city council passed the TIF ordinance, and so that's a go. And they also, so they can move forward with the infrastructure and building design and all of that. There's a plan for around 42 townhomes, some 2-bedroom, some 3-bedroom. And so that will start hopefully within a few months. And so that's the big news on that one. Okay, any other ordinances you want to, or how about the other zoning stuff?
So I guess the other update, I gave a presentation a couple months ago to the Housing Commission here on our proposed changes to the bolt controls. And those are still making their way through the process, but I have been in contact with Councilmember Swank, who is the chair of the Planning and Development Council Committee. And I ran into him at the public engagement opportunity for the new roundabout at 682 and 56. So we got to chat a little bit about bolt controls, and I believe that he's ready to move forward with those in the fall. I haven't received any requests or questions from him recently about the proposed changes, but I do believe that he'll be bringing those up in committee soon. That's my update, at least on the bolt controls ordinance, and I don't believe there's anything else in the works right now that I need to mention. And regarding maybe other projects, I know I've reported out on the city's Welcome Home Ohio application, where we submitted a grant application asking for $3.5 million from the state to build 14 affordable housing units throughout the city. Our application is still being reviewed, but hopefully we will hear back from them soon as to whether or not our application got approved. So update pending, but we are hopeful. And we are partnering with Joe Recchi on that one as well.
Yes,
So
yes.
he had success with that program up in Sandusky, and so at least he knows how to kind of navigate the program and know what information the state is looking for. So we're hopeful for that one and definitely excited to report out good news, hopefully.
Well, we're going to keep our fingers crossed and hope for the best.
Yes.
Okay, those are the big items for today. Then we've got some other issues to discuss. First of all, I've been paying attention to the bylaws, which, I guess I didn't, did I say that the bylaws have been, the ordinance has been updated and approved by city council with those little glitches and errors that were in there that we needed to take out. So we're all legal now, and I'm going to get Scott, our IT guy, to make sure that that goes on our website. So our bylaws that we passed with those pending changes also are approved, that will be on the website as well. So we are official, legal, up to date, we're good. So we just have to put that on the website. So I think that's great. The other thing that we need to focus on is September, which is around the corner. We need to have nominations for the board for the leadership here for the commission for next year, and we'll vote on it in December. So please be thinking about whether you want to be secretary or take the chair position, whatever. And so if you could review the bylaws and look at what those responsibilities are and what you might want to do, that would be wonderful. And you're welcome to mention it to me or ask me questions, whatever. And we will be talking about that next month, so keep that under your hat. The other thing that is really important to discuss is that we've been up till now trying to educate everybody, get everybody to have a knowledge base so that you all can feel comfortable with, the things going on in the city, and maybe get some ideas about what your passion may be. And we've kind of talked about this in the past, but I think a commission is not going to be functional until we have subcommittees that can report or research certain areas of importance, and then we can kind of get some stuff done. And that we're not just sort of reacting to what's out there, which is, of course, part of the process. We do want to advise and whatnot, but also how can we make some things happen? So, some areas of concern that we might want to consider, and I want to bring this up for our next meeting and get serious about it, is do we want to focus on something like senior housing? Do we want to have a subcommittee specifically for renters issues? Do we want to have a group that specifically analyzes new legislation, for example? What would be good for ordinances in the community? Maybe keeping track of what's happening at the state that you might want to use, something like that. Do we want to have one group that's specific for low income? And of course, that would include senior housing, so there'd be some overlap, but maybe that's not a bad idea. Another thing is new housing options. Again, I'm not saying this is what we need to do. I'm just throwing some ideas out there of subcommittees that we might want to be part of. And you can be part of one or two, whatever your energy level is, and we can kind of go from there. And another point I want to bring up is we do have a possibility, we do have a senior high school intern who can do some legwork for us. He's first in his class. He's president of his class. He is very bright and got all kinds of wonderful skills, so he could conceivably help us with some legwork and some, looking up information. He's going to be working with us for 10 hours a week, and he's specifically asked to work with the Democratic Party, but he wants to work with government. So we're going to keep him pretty busy on campaign stuff, but he also, for 10 hours a week, he needs to do a lot of stuff. And after the election, he will be done, thus for the most part, and he can do a lot of work for cities. So I'm hoping that you can kind of think about that. I'm going to be meeting with him next week when he is going to start, the first week of classes are next week. So I'm going to talk to him about what he's interested in, and I want to give him some ideas. So if you want to send some ideas my way to talk about, that would be great. Do you want to spend a few minutes discussing those options right now?
I had something just to add. I think it would be good, I know we've talked about this a couple times, about like maybe a committee to talk about what all the resources are, because we keep talking about, oh, we could put this
Yep.
on our website, but
Yep,
maybe
yep.
some of that work could be done in a committee.
Right.
And then we'll have a better picture of how, like what's available locally, and then when something comes up, how that fits in with what's
And
already
make sure
available.
that we have that as a, in
Correct.
our repository and make that available.
Yes.
And I
So-
see we have something from the audience.
Hi, I'm Rob Delich. I live on Morris Avenue here in the city. That idea, I think, is a good one. So the parallel is the Disabilities Commission has some committees.
Thank you.
Right.
And their committee for that purpose, I think the parallel is their communication and advocacy. No, it's not advocacy. I think it's just communications committee. So that they're pulling information together, pulling resources together, figuring out how to get that information out to the public. And that would, I think, be an important thing to do here. You've got a lot of things you're working on, and you want to get it out to the public websites, one thing, but there's also public announcements through the city you could do potentially. There's a little bit of that been happening lately. Shade Tree Commission just put out an announcement.
Right.
Some things like that. But one question I have is, how can committees work in this context? So you're a full commission, so there's sunshine laws. Your committee meetings would have to be public, I think, unless there are 2 or fewer members.
Right, if there are,
From the
since there are
commission.
11 of us, depending on the size of the, so we have to think about how that would work, because yes, we
Yeah.
have to be concerned about sunshine laws.
So there might be some ways to do some small group meetings that aren't necessarily publicly announced, if they're small enough, possibly, I think.
Right, right,
Not having experience exactly, I'm not sure, but I think maybe. So keeping that in mind, there's some limitations there, but you could do committees that are publicly announced, and like the Disabilities Commission has 2 or 3 subcommittees. One I've been serving on as a non-commission member.
right.
So it's the accessibility and advocacy, that's the one that I serve on. We started off as just accessibility, and now they rolled in advocacy in there as well. So that one meets monthly in Berry Conference Room on a recurring date, and is publicly announced and has agendas, and they keep minutes, just because you have to do all those things if it's one of those official meetings.
Right,
So
and we
that's
can
one
include people
potential
who aren't
requirement.
on the commission as advisors and whatnot, so that's something to keep in mind.
And if you do go to that kind of structure, there may be one of these or 2 of these that I would want to be involved in myself.
Okay.
As a non-commission member, but as a public resident to be involved, so.
Well, thank you, Rob. You do a lot, we really appreciate it. I have to say that, for me personally, I'm very interested in the rental issues, amongst other things. And on that note, Maria noticed that this says Southeast Ohio Legal Services, but they're now called the Legal Aid of Southeast and Central Ohio, which is kind of a little mind-boggling. But they put together a series of kind of booklets for people to learn about issues related to things like how to get your security deposit back. The problem is, community, sometimes my landlord isn't making repairs. What can I do? This is fraught with problems, as I'm sure you're aware. Rights and duties of tenants in Ohio. So these are some things that they handed out at a recent meeting, and they're trying to be more proactive in alerting people about what's going on with rental issues, because as the legal aid, they are, faced with people who do things, and this is a common one. My landlord's not fixing my stuff, so I'm not paying my rent. And then what does the landlord do? They kick you out. But there is a remedy. If your landlord is not fixing your stuff, and you have communicated with them, fairly, and they're not, then you can put your rent into escrow with the court. So the money for your rent, you're still officially paying it in a sense, but it's not going to the landlord because they haven't done what they're supposed to do. So, we see all too many people, I've sat in on eviction court, and people go, but he hasn't fixed my place. Well, it's because, then then you have to go through this process, and, please don't do that in the future, because it doesn't help. So anyway, there's a lot of things like that. Also, Legal Services of Southeast Ohio has been starting the last few months, every month, a tips for tenants, and in the local papers, in the Independent, in the Athens News. And I think they might be doing it soon for the student newspaper, the Post, although because students don't write it, they have to do it as a letter to the editor. But, we're hoping that they do it too. So, I think there's a lot of really interesting programs that we can do to help our renters. And as you may know, about 70% of our population in Athens are renters, which is the reverse of what it typically is in other communities. It's usually about 30% renters and 70% homeowners. Here, it's the opposite. So I think we have a real obligation to our renters. And the other piece of this is we can also inform landlords, property managers, about what their responsibilities are. And so make sure that they're writing leases that are legal, and giving them maybe some advice about how to do that. Anyway, so that's my latest thing. So any other thoughts on that topic? And thank you for your idea, appreciate that.
So in terms of the subcommittees, isn't there also an obligation for the commission to write the report every year?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. Yes, that is true. We are supposed to write a report. I can't remember exactly. I think we said it would be done in November, but we can check. We can talk about that next time. And so somebody's going to have to do that, and I could use some help with that. We can use the minutes, and, we really have just started going, so I don't think there's a huge responsibility to write a manifesto here or something, but we do have to, in the spirit of following the law and doing what we're supposed to do, and to alert people of what we're trying to do, I think we do need to do that. So anybody who's interested in being part of that, again, I don't think it'll be a huge task, but we'll appreciate everybody being part of that. Thank you for bringing that up. Appreciate it. Anything else? I'm going to pick on our architect down here. Any thoughts about subcommittees that you think we ought to have?
I think zoning changes, I think, are definitely relevant to the affordable housing discussion, or kind of fundamental to the affordable housing discussion. I think that some of what the work we've been doing has been, kind of responding to proposed developments, but if there was anything to help identify opportunities for development, or opportunities to create new housing stock, or, an example of that is if we have, mixed use or old buildings that are for sale that maybe weren't residential, that could be converted, whether these are, well, maybe university is kind of a separate thing, but, converting under kind of utilized buildings to housing or new development opportunities. I think if we can use the commission to kind of be a little bit more proactive instead of just like you said, instead of responding, I think that
That's great. That's great. Yeah, I think that last time we talked, or I talked with Megan about that, we know people have been contacting me if, there's this house that's been vacant for decades or years or whatever, nobody's living in it, it's deteriorating, it's falling apart, but landowner is still paying the taxes. So land bank can't take it over. But if it's really bad, what can we do about it? So Megan and I talked about how can we identify what all those places are. And then I've spoken with a realtor in the community would be delighted to learn about those and see if maybe they could approach the owners and suggest that, here's what your property could be worth, if you sell it as is, and here's what it could be worth if you renovate it, and so let's talk about it. And apparently, this person has been a legend in realty in this community and can pull a lot of people together to possibly do something with them. So that's another that's part of that call, how can we add more housing stock? That would be a great thing for you to be in charge of. So, anyway, if you all could think about that for next time and where you'd like to land, that would be wonderful. I mean, there's some people here I think that I'd like to see in each of those different areas. Any comments from anybody else about ideas you have?
How many subcommittees are you?
I mean, I don't think we can go crazy here. I mean, I think if we can start off with 2 or 3, that would be fabulous, and see how they work. How about from a university perspective?
Yeah, I know, I was thinking, because I mean, obviously the rental impacts us. I have on my to-do list I'll share the off-campus living brochure that we have, because that also talks about like working with your landlord. The other thing that I was going to reach out to you independently on was, I noticed in the June minutes, I wasn't able to be at that meeting, and a conversation came up about universities subsidizing, potential opportunities for universities to subsidize housing, like, or give money towards people who, university staff for.
Right, right.
And it's on my list to talk to the president's chief of staff about, because we currently there is there are some awards. There's like moving allowances, and there is a signing bonus right now that's part of the university, our ability to issue to new staff. And I'm just thinking, like, can we repurpose that or relanguage it, or, change the language so that it is for housing, to help subsidize housing for those new staff members who want to come.
Right.
It's just the way in which we market it, right? Like,
Right.
the money's there and we're giving it to staff now when they come, but how do we frame that so that they're using it in a way that,
And we know that other universities are doing this.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I think
so,
it's worth exploring.
Yeah, so,
And that could be something that employers, not just the university, might want to consider, and we can
Yeah.
say, hey, the university's decided to do X, and so how about, I won't name names, but
Yeah.
other larger businesses might want to do the same to encourage people to come here. So,
I would probably like take a look at the bylaws again and see like what the priorities that we've talked about over the last like 5 or 6 months, and think about how we want to go forward before I specifically advocate for any one of these, if all of these are too many.
yes, that's,
So, yeah.
especially to start off with.
Yeah, I think I
You
actually.
start small, get a success, and then you see if you can handle more.
Yeah, I do like the idea of continuing on the way that we have, where we kind of like vet projects that are up and coming
Yeah.
with each other. I think studying them a little further and then letting the rest of the members know how this will impact affordable housing would be a great subcommittee.
Yeah.
And also, other, new opportunities, being more proactive than just reactive, I think would be great also.
That's great. And
So
Mary-
I know I just reiterated what we've said, but
Yeah, that's great. And Mary has such wonderful historical perspective, having been on council and state
Not
rep.
on council.
Oh, you have been on council? Your husband was on council. Okay, you were a state rep, so
Right.
that's, well, and you've been around for the city for a long time, so. Any other thoughts?
Well, I would probably be interested in the housing options. That's one of the things that
Building housing stock?
I feel strongly about a need in the community, and also probably looking at legislation that might have some kind of impact on the ability for the city to obtain either additional grants or ones that affect the region.
Great. Okay. Anyone else? Maria? Because you're a renter, what do you think?
So I would be interested in the rental issues, and I think it overlaps with low-income housing options as well.
Although rentals don't have to be low income.
No, it doesn't,
So-
but
That could be a wide variety. Some people prefer renting. Okay, let's see, I think that's all I plan to cover. Since we have a little extra time, do you want to ask Glenn or Zach about any other housing thing? What would you recommend we do, Glenn?
Tough question. In regards to what specifically, the overall shortage of housing in the city of Athens?
Well, like, we talked about a number of subcommittees. Do you have any thoughts about what might be super helpful based on your involvement with housing?
Not specifically, I guess. I mean, I think there could be various subcommittees. You know, I know there's an interest in not only low-income housing, but housing for everyone. That's challenging. There's so much emphasis on low-income and economically challenged households. You know, and that's where my focus has been for so
Sure.
many years. So, you know, there should be a subcommittee perhaps on maybe the different sectors like that. I don't know if segregating them is wise or not. But it's all part of the community. We need to segregate it. It's a tough issue. And the problem, it still persists today. That's why we're here. It's not easy stuff. I mean, luckily there are developers that can navigate some of these IRS programs to help with affordable units, you know, such as Kershaw Green. You know, for better or for worse, that's 180 more units right there. And I know there's traffic challenges there. It's just, there's no easy way to do this, and it probably deserves a lot more time than we all have, really. But
Well, it's like, how do you eat an elephant? One chunk at a time.
yeah, one thing at a time, absolutely.
Right.
Maybe a subcommittee for different sectors of housing or types of, you know, low income is a whole ball of wax in its own. And then you have the university, the student rental population that's very challenging and that drives the market and consumes a lot of the housing in the city. It's a tough one. I'm here with all of us to help us. I don't know.
Okay. Well, if you think of anything, and so you're going to leave those brochures and you're going to get back to me about what kinds of links and whatnot we could have that would add to our website. And I'm not sure if Affordable Housing Commission is the best place to have that housed, but we can talk about that. I think that's certainly a good idea to have it here. I talked with the mayor about it, and he liked that idea. So,
You know, we obviously have a lot of public investment in the housing challenges we have here through the federal government and state government. How do we attract other investment? I think is a good question.
yep.
How do we attract other investment? I don't know.
Okay, great. And we can talk maybe about the Kershaw Green situation?
Yeah.
Will do.
We do, obviously, I work at the Center for Student Legal Services. That's not why I'm a part of this commission, but we do education on landlord-tenant from start to finish, and we do actual consultation. We can't do the general advice that we heard Solvig say, 'cause it's not legal advice. We have to do the step-by-step, but we're prepaid student legal services. We review leases. We do security deposits. We do condition issues. All the different factors are a little different. LASCO, they have all different types of housing, different money pots. Escrow is similar, but there's other things going on depending with money. But we've been around forever, and we've done, I think, pretty good work. And as long as you've paid for our services, you come in and we review from start to finish.
Well, thank you. So your assignments for next month, if you're willing to take it, is please think about whether you want to run for office for the Affordable Housing Commission. Also, I want you to think about which subcommittee you would be interested, which one or two subcommittees you might be interested in, and sort of outline that, and then we can talk about it next time. Because we want to get some stuff done. I think we've done a good job of educating folks, and you all have a depth of knowledge to begin with before you got here, which is why you're here. But I think that it's time to take some action and get some stuff done. All right, it's 1:01, so anybody want to adjourn? Anybody, you have to make a motion. Motion to adjourn?
Second?
Okay, everybody? Aye? Aye. Okay, we're done. Thank you, everybody, appreciate it.